Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Preezy from Listen Up, Listen In podcast. This is a podcast discussing different topics that will help us motivate, educate, differentiate, heal, laugh, grow, and improve ourselves throughout our daily lives. With my special co-host guests, trust me, you are going to laugh and have a good time. So whether you're in your car, relaxing at home, on the job, hanging out with your family and friends, get ready to tune in to Listen Up, Listen In podcast. See you soon.
Tanya, you ready?
Listen up, listen in. 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 Thanks for tuning in. Let's have a conversation. Talking worldwide, it don't matter your location. What you going through and the topic may have relation. Let's get some motivation. Let's swap out education. Every Friday we heal, laugh, improve, and grow. Put some nutrients in your mind, give you food for the soul. I know you pumped and preparing for your weekend and low. Might as well join the discussion and tune into the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Listen Up, Listen In podcast. Of course, you already know who I am. This is Preezy. And I have a special guest with me today. You know, all my guests are special. And let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman that's on my show today. He is a family man, father, and friend with a heart for people. As a minister, mentor, and speaker, he has dedicated his life to inspiring and uplifting others. His mission is to help others deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problems, heal from your pain, fulfill your purpose. He spreads a message of hope and healing wherever he goes. He believes that we must heal ourselves. When we heal ourselves, we heal our families. Our families heal our communities heal our world. So without further ado, Earnest James. Hey, Ernest, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm okay. I always like to ask my guests, how's your day going, even though it just started, but how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. I woke up this morning, and that was the first step. I knew it was going to be all right after that, right?
That's great. That's what's up. Now, you got a lot of things in your bio, and I said, no, I'm not going to read all that because I'm going to do the show for him. I ain't doing that now. I don't be doing no freebies, Ernest. But please tell my audience, who is Earnest James?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you.
You sound a little far away. You went down the block?
No, I'm still right here.
Oh, all right, come on back, Ernest. Now, I said speak to me. You went down the block like you were speaking to the community. You sound.
Is it better?
Oh, you sound much better now. Yes.
Okay, I don't know what it is, but okay. First of all, like I was saying, let me say thank you for having me on. You know, I love being in the podcast space since I got into it, and love meeting new people like yourself, as well as hosting my own podcast and having people come on. It's just the community and podcasting at large. It's just a great experience since I've been in it. So, again, thank you for having me on. Who is Ernest? At my core, I'm just a person who loves people, and my whole thing is any way I can help somebody, I'm gonna try to help them. Um, grew up 2-parent household, 8 sisters and brothers, 9 of us all together.
Wow.
Went through some hardships and stuff. Uh, as a family, but we made it through. Each of us, mom and dad married until my mom passed away a couple years ago. Dad still doing good and still around. So, yeah.
Sorry to hear about your mom. Sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. Father to 1 biological child, which is my daughter. Stepfather to 4 sons, married and divorced unfortunately, a couple times, but
A couple of times.
well, twice. Well, that's a
Okay.
couple. Twice is a couple, so
Okay.
but yeah, like I said, at my core, I'm just a person who loves people,
Yeah.
and I got into the podcast space. Um, I won't say by accident because it wasn't an accident, but by invitation. Let me put it that way. I was doing a uh, male mentoring program that I had started right before COVID hit, and we was about to really kick it off, and I had got to, with a school. I was going to do it as a after school program, and then COVID hit and shut everything down.
Yes.
And so I went to Instagram and I put it on Instagram, and I said, okay, well, I just do it on Instagram and share it that way. In the midst of that, that's how I first got on Instagram. In the midst of that, I was going through some issues in my marriage,
Okay.
and one of the things that I found out as we worked through that was at its core, it was our difference in upbringing. So again, I was raised in a two-parent household. My wife at the time wasn't. She was raised in a single mother household.
Right.
And so what I realized going through that is that every woman I had ever dated had been a fatherless daughter. And so I was like, okay, cool. So either I'm attracted to them or they're attracted to me. But for whatever reason, we're connecting. So I started a page on Instagram called Friend to Fatherless Daughters. And so I just started giving my opinion and ways that I could, help that community as far as fatherless daughters and how they show up in their relationships, just from a man's perspective and things like that.
Right.
And once I started doing that, I was sent the invitation like, hey, would you like to be on my podcast? So I had heard about podcasts. I didn't really know, the ins and outs of it or anything like that. But I was like, yeah, you asked, yeah, I do it. And I did the first one. After I did the first one, I got about 5 or 6 more invitations. So I did
Nice.
all 5 or 6 of those. And then
Wow.
one of the guys that was over, I was on a podcast called Dads on Purpose, and it's a father's podcast, and they're out of Texas. I'm in the Chicagoland area, and so I ended up going to Texas to see my daughter, to visit my daughter, and I met up with the one of the guys that was the host. We met up and we had breakfast, and so in the midst of our conversation, he was like, "You need to have your own podcast." And so I thought about it, and fast forward, Deal to Heal with E. James podcast was born. We are, I think this, as we're recording this right now, I think we've released like 69 episodes or something like that.
Wow.
I think I'm on episode 90 as far as recorded already that
Wow.
haven't been released yet. And yeah, so that was my journey into podcasting, how I got into it. It was an invitation, and it opened up a lot of doors for me. Um, to be able to express, because I'm a speaker, but one of the things as being a speaker is you reach out to schools or organizations or different platforms in order for you to speak on their platform,
Right.
and that's, to me, I like that, but it's still the same thing. Like, you're waiting for the opportunity, And so with podcasting, it allowed me to speak whenever I wanted to speak. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And so it was
Yes.
a kind of an answer to a prayer, and then it also helps when you do go out to talk to people that, okay, cool, you got a podcast, then they have something to refer back to, you know, uh, when they meet you, or refer back to hear you speaking on different subjects and things like that. So it's been a blessing to me since I've been in. I love it.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so, like you said, you go all over and speak to different people and communities.
Yeah. It's been slow. I really just, so outside of church, let me put it that way. Outside of church, I've been speaking as far as in church, in the church arena and religious arena for years. But as a speaker, to go into schools and organizations and things like that, I've really kind of just started that phase of my speaking.
Right.
Um, so that's kind of new, and then that's kind of building. I'm still kind of building that right now. Um, But as far as like on the podcast side, I think I've done like 20 something interviews on different podcasts right now.
Nice.
So even like on my YouTube channel for my podcast, Deal to Heal with E. James podcast on YouTube, I have a playlist on there called guest appearances. So every time I'm appearance on somebody, especially if they have video, I put it there. So like I said, I think I'm on about 20, because all of them don't have video. I think yours is not on video just yet.
Not
So I
yet. Yeah.
did do a couple of them that was just audio, but the ones that does have video that's on YouTube, and some of them even sent me the video, but I post them there. So I got like 20 something interviews on there that I've been on other people's, I guess on other people's platforms. So I love it, man. It's awesome.
So you enjoy doing the podcast?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
man, I
fun.
love it. Like I said, I get to meet, new people all the time, and
Yes.
especially like my podcast is on healing, right? Healing. So I always say I haven't been through everything, and neither do I want to go through everything.
Right.
So I speak on the things that I've been through. But if it's something I haven't been through, then I try to reach out and find guests, coaches, or whatever, whoever they are, who have made it through, whatever that obstacle is, and have them on as a guest to be able to bring life and speak words of encouragement, and just give their testimony and encourage somebody who may be going through the same thing. So we've had domestic violence people on.
Mm-hmm.
We've had people talking about divorce on. We've had people talking about, just mindset training, self love, just all different subjects. We had one
Right.
young lady who's an amputee. I think she's only in her 20s now, and ended up having to get her
Wow.
leg cut off. And so, talking to her about her journey, she actually is an author. She wrote a book, and talking to her about her journey of such a large or traumatic event at such a young age, and learning how to accept it and move forward with it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
we've had some good people on the podcast, and like I said, I love it, man. We get to talk to people all over the world, places I never even been to, but I'm able to communicate with somebody and have a conversation. So I love it.
Well, it sounds like you're very busy. Like, how do you find the time to fit all these things in? Being a minister, entrepreneur, and you having a podcast, and being a father and family man. You got a lot going on, and that's beautiful. You're
So
keeping yourself busy.
well, a lot of it kind of runs together, sometimes simultaneously, and then some of it goes in spurts, right? So from the minister part of it, our church. So I was a minister. I was an associate minister at a church for 10 years,
Mhm.
and getting close to the end of the 10 years, me and one of the other associate ministers that was there, well, it was his calling. He felt that the Lord had called him to start his own church, and he came and asked me would I go with him.
Right.
So I said okay. I prayed on it. It was like okay, yeah. So we started a church. This year in January made 10 years that the church was open. Unfortunately, when COVID hit,
Mhm.
it hit us hard.
Right.
With especially being we weren't at this point we weren't an upstart, because we had been around for some years.
Right.
But it still hit us hard, and so we went to virtual, and we've been kind of doing virtual since then. Um, but it just was a lot of changes, with the ministry or whatever. The church is still alive and still going, but it took a lot of changes. Um, and with I was the executive pastor, and my pastor was a senior pastor. But by everything kind of going virtual, there was really no need for me because you could do virtual at the laptop in your bedroom. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
So it really, so I was just like, okay, let me step down from the position. Still involved, still around, but just step down from the position, and still figuring out, you know, what's going to be the transition for the church, because right now it's still virtual, you know. So there's those challenges. So I stepped down as the associate as the executive pastor, but like I said, still around, still involved. And then as far as fatherhood, my daughter is the youngest of my kids, and she's finna be 20.
Right.
You know, and so I don't have no babies. You know, I always say she's my baby, but she's not a baby no more. So
Right.
all my kids, she's the youngest, and she's going to be 20. So all the, the boys is older than that. So as far as being a father, definitely still a father, but they don't need me as much. You know what I mean? So it's not like raising the kids now. Now they kind of young adults and finding their own way.
Right.
So, they call me when they need me and stuff like that. So that don't necessarily keep me, that busy. Um, and as far as with the podcast, I kind of got it on the schedule of when I record and things like that. And I do have a full time job as a bricklayer. That's what I do, and so
Wow.
I do work with that. So it sounds like a lot, but
But
it's
it's
not really a
balanced.
lot.
It's balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it
Yeah,
sounds
it
like a
sounds
lot.
like
I'm
a
like,
lot, but
when
you
he,
gotta just
when
work it
he
out.
go to sleep. But it's balanced. I hear that. It's
Yeah,
balanced. Okay, that's good. Because it's hard to balance things in our lives today. It really is. You have so much going on and you're trying to do this and do that. So when you have a balance, it does make things easy. It really does. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Wow.
yep.
So how is it being a mentor? Because at one point I was thinking
Um,
about being a mentor to help these young kids out here that we're losing, you know.
yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about your mentoring.
Well, you know what I always say, you gotta want it.
Right,
As far as anything, and sometimes you meet people, especially these young kids, who don't really want it right now. You know what I'm saying? And so, no matter how good of a picture that you paint, no matter how much inspiration you bring, if they don't want it right then, it's just gonna fall on deaf ears.
right,
Um, so it's just a matter of, you have to just get out there and say, hey, here it is. I'm offering it to you. I can't make you eat it. You know what I'm saying? I can't make you drink it, but it's here.
right,
And so that's kind of where I've been. I've run into some young men who some gravitate to it right away. It's like, okay, this is what I want to go this way. I want to learn what it is that you're hearing, what you're saying. Some of them listen. I've never had anyone that just be like, no, I want that.
right.
But I do understand by their actions, like, yeah, I hear what you're saying and it sounds good, but I'm not ready to move in that
Mm,
direction right now. And so you just gotta just stay in yourself as far as knowing why you do it, because my thing is, I know it's right. I know what I'm offering you is gonna be better for you. But again, I can't make you eat it.
right,
I can't make you do it, but I have to just keep offering it. And when you come around to it and you say, okay, you ready? You know where I'm at. You know where the table is spread. You know what I'm saying?
right,
So it's just like, come on and, just kind of go from there. So that's how I look into it. That's how I look at it. And there's always going to be someone who appreciates your message. Sometimes they might not show it right away, and you might not see it up front. But sometimes it be some time away, or even people that you may not even see all the time. Because I get phone calls sometimes. I run into old friends or run into people who I may have been in contact with from years ago, but haven't talked to them in a while. And they're like, hey, yeah, I see what you're doing on YouTube. I see the podcast, and I've been following you, and, but they haven't talked to. I haven't seen these people in years or,
right,
whatever time. But then when we have the conversation, it's like, yeah, I was watching. I've been watching. I've been following you. I haven't said anything, and so that's one of the things that the way I look at it also, like even with the young boys, and whoever it is that I'm mentoring, yeah, right now I might not see the results, but I know that I'm making a difference, and maybe it'll be a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now before they come back and I can actually see the result now. You know what I mean? But it's just like sowing seeds. When you first plant it, you don't see nothing. You put it in the ground, you cover it up, you don't see nothing.
right,
It takes its time. Whatever that season is, once that growing season comes in, and then it starts to poke its way up out the ground, then you see that it wasn't in vain. But when you first have to plant it, you just have to plant it and water it and leave the rest up to God to bring it to let it grow. And so that's how
Absolutely.
I look at it.
Yeah, because you said that um, you have the Friends to Fatherless Daughters campaign, and you also have the Man Up, standing for Men
Yeah,
Activating Newly Untapped Potential. Wow, so you
yeah.
have two things go. You have two programs.
Yeah, well, the Man Up was the male mentoring program when I first started it, and then when I started the Friends of Fatherless Daughters, that's what really took off. So a year, maybe 2 years ago, I was on this journey of really trying to find, okay, where do I want to go? Like, what do I
Right.
want to do for me? Like, looking for that purpose for my life, um, for where I am now. And so, in the midst of that, God gave me a quote that says, "Pain births purpose, purpose births progress, and progress is the evidence that God is at work." And
Yes.
so when I had did the Man Up program, I had already had that. That was already up and going on Instagram or whatever. But when I started the Friends of Fatherless Daughters, that took off.
Wow.
So even going with that, with the quote that God gave me, like, the evidence, the progress is the evidence. You know what I mean? And so the progress was with the Friends of Fatherless Daughters, and so that's where I went. I followed the progress, and it has opened up a lot of doors, and again, bringing me to this point where I'm at, even as a speaker. So with the Man Up program, I'm trying to change that into more of an online community. I'm in the works of doing some stuff with that. So I as far as in person, I'm not doing as much with that anymore. With the Friends of Fatherless Daughters, I was also um, trying to change that a little bit, because that's been a hard field to get into, and is understandable. So I've had a lot of conversations and been on podcasts and stuff talking about it, um, and it's all been received well. From the fatherless daughters, from the because I talk to adult fatherless daughters,
Right.
and so it's been received well from them on podcasts and things like that. But when you go to get, like, in the room, then it's different, because that whole area is dominated by women, because it's sort of a
Wow.
woman's issue somewhat. And so I get, "Hey, Ernest, you good, you great, I love what you're doing, whatever." And then it's like, "Hey, let me get on the stage," and it's like, no, you gotta stop right there. No men allowed, sort of. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
kind of like that. So it's like, yeah, we can have a conversation. I can listen to your ideas, but to get in the door, like actually get in the door and stand before the women and say, "Hey, this is just from a man's perspective, whatever." It's like, "Nah, we not gonna let you do that." So I've just had to kind of change my the way I go about it. So I just start doing more podcasts and interviews and stuff like that with it, but not so much the in person stuff, because the doorkeepers is just like, yeah, we're not necessarily ready for that yet.
Right. Right. Why do you think that there are so many single family households?
um, it's a it's a array of reasons, um, but some of the more common ones that I would say, number one, um, I don't think that a lot of times the women really think about it in a way, on a grander scale, right? Because sometimes it's just normal, and so we have these cycles that run in our families, and because it's normal, we don't change it. So one of the things that I always ask the fatherless daughters when I do have a conversation with them, one of the first conversations I ask, or one of the first questions that I ask is, "What generation of fatherlessness are you?"
Right.
Meaning, you're a fatherless daughter, but was your mother a fatherless daughter? Was your
Mm.
grandmother a fatherless daughter? Was your great grandmother a fatherless daughter? And start asking them, so they have to look back and see how many generations it goes back. And then once they can look at that and say, "Okay, we about 3 or 4 generations in or more. Then my next question is, okay, what are you going to do different so it doesn't continue with your daughter? And so that takes some real, thinking about intentional of like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to change things? And if they already have a child whose father may not be in their life, okay, so you already have this child, but you still have to do some things that's going to make life better for this child so the cycle still don't continue. And so that's when we get into mentorship and father figures, because I always say, your father figure may not be your father, but
Right.
if you have a father figure and someone who's willing to love on you and instill, the values that you need to have as a daughter from a male figure, father figure, then you can begin to develop different relationships with men so that you understand what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how you should move, and you don't keep that same cycle going on and on and on, because it's normal to not have a man in the house. It's normal
Right.
to raise kids by yourself. You know what I mean? We want to disrupt that. No, it's not normal. It's a fact, and it's a situation that a lot of women find themselves in, but we don't want it to be normal. You know what I mean? We want to take
Right.
that back and make the family structure again normal. And that a family structure don't necessarily mean that you still with the father as far as in a relationship, but you still you still with the father as far as being parents. Because that's not just because your relationship status changed, it don't change the fact that you're a parent. And so we got to learn how to co-parent. We got to learn how to make sure that we're active in our kids' lives, from the men and the women, mothers and fathers. And if you're in a situation where the father or the mother don't want to be involved, then we got to look for mentors, father figures and mother figures, to take that place so that they're still pouring into our children, and we're not keeping this cycle going on and on.
Right. Did you see? I know you said you have the people on your podcast that have been in domestic violence and stuff like that. During the COVID, did you see those numbers rise? Uh, Domestic violence, maybe even child abuse, suicide. Did you see that for yourself?
Well, I didn't see it for myself personally, but definitely in
As
the
far as your guess?
well, some of my guests talked about it and mentioned it, not necessarily in their lives at that time, but of course they're more in that area, so they did mention that, yeah, the suicides. Suicides is one thing, and we can talk about that too. But the suicide rate, domestic violence definitely went up more, and some even the child abuse, because now we're taking people who are used to moving, and you're with somebody, but you're not necessarily around that person all day, and then we put them in the same environment. And
Mm,
so even with you have couples, let's say a man and a woman, like I leave, I go to work, you leave, you go to work. We don't see each other until the afternoon, and then we only together, for a couple of hours, woke, and then we go to sleep, and then tomorrow we start over. So
right.
that's maybe a good 6 hours that we actually spend together. So now you take some people, a couple who's only spent 6 hours together every day, and then now you put them in the same house for 24 hours.
Mm,
You know what I
yes.
mean? So now
Mm,
you getting
well,
this. Now you're really getting to see, like, okay, who are you? Where you been at?
yes.
Why your socks on the floor? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And all these little things that you start to see that annoy you. You didn't wash the dishes last night, so now
Isn't
again
that
tonight you got to
crazy?
clean up.
That
And all
yeah.
that stuff start showing up now, because now we can't get away from each other and we stuck in the same house. And then it
Yes.
also goes into us um, really being able to communicate. So now, instead of us being able to have a conversation and say, okay, this is where we are, let's really talk about the things that we like or don't like, we come at it from a different angle. So now we're arguing all the time, then we fighting, and then it turns physical, because we're not communicating, our wants and needs correctly. And so the pandemic definitely did that, by putting everybody into a room that you can't get out of, you know. It's like, okay,
Wow.
you gonna have some disagreements, and if you're not mature enough to be able to stop recognize what's going on and talk through it, then you're going to act it out, physically. And unfortunately, that can lead to, some domestic violence and child abuse and
Yes.
things like that because we really just not used to being around each other that long. You know what I mean? Like I said, we
Right.
together for a couple hours and then it's like, okay, I'm going to do my thing, you're going to do your thing. But once you lock us in the house and we can't go nowhere, and then now I want to go do my thing, but I can't. You want to go do your thing, but you can't. But we got to stand here and look at each other. And
Oh,
unless we can
yeah.
figure out how to do a thing together, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like we both trying to fight for a room, for just space. And so yeah, the pandemic really opened up a lot of eyes, and it's some good and some bad that came with it. You
Yes.
know, in my space, it allowed me time to sit down and think about, what I wanted to do and things I wanted to create. And I was still working during the pandemic. So
Oh, really?
I was an essential worker. I was an essential worker, number one, with construction, and then I did home health care too. So I took
Wow.
care of people with disabilities. And so I was still working during the pandemic. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
everybody else is sitting at home. I'm like, I want to sit at home, you know. And they was like, nah, you essential, buddy. You gotta be here. So
Wow. Yeah, that was some tough times for a lot of people. And believe it or not, I think about the little kids because the domestic violence really went up with them. And I think the school sometimes was their safe haven, being in school,
yeah,
and it's sad. But like you said, being home all day with somebody, when you was at work, you had that space, and now you underneath each other 24/7. So yeah, I guess you
yeah,
really got to know who the person was that you was with.
right,
Like,
right.
you know, and then, like you
Yeah.
said, it could have been good and it could have been bad, but have you with the men's program? Do you get a lot of people that were once incarcerated or gang members? Have you ever experienced that with them, as your clients?
Um, not really, because most of the the clients that I deal with, and most of the people that I deal with, especially in the male mentoring program, are younger men. So they're like
Oh,
high school.
okay.
I try to get them like right at high school, between high school and um and early 20s, from high school, still in high school to just now getting out of high school. I try to get them in that area. Not to say that some of them may not be involved in gangs and things, at that young of age, but
Right.
generally not to the point where they've been locked up. I try to catch them before they get to
They
that point.
get there. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. It seems like you have you have a lot of positive things going on. And, that's what we need in our community because, a lot of things are happening and especially, suicide. Suicide rate
Yeah.
has really gone skyrocket. And you say you wanted to talk about that. What is it that you want to talk about when it came to
Yeah.
suicide?
Well, I want to talk about it for several reasons. Number one, I have my own bout with suicidal thoughts, right? So I mentioned earlier that my mom had passed away.
Yeah.
But before my mom passed away, I was in a dark place already because I was going through some changes. I was in debt at that time. I was, going through my own personal depression. I was going through a divorce at that time, and also, my mother-in-law, who I was very close to, who I still love to this day, she passed away,
Oh,
right
wow.
before my mom, right, and then a little while after that, then my mom passed away. So it was a whole lot going on right at that same time period, and I was in my own depression and things of that nature, and was like, you know what, things would be better if I wasn't here, and sometimes we find ourselves in these places that we never thought we'd be in,
Right.
and because we're not having a conversation about it, when it comes up, we feel like we're the only one.
Right.
And so that's why now I talk about it. I'm very open about talking about it and talking about the fact that I've been through it, especially with men, because as long as you feel like you're the only one, then you make yourself the only one because you close yourself off from everybody else.
Yes.
And if your depression gets strong enough, if those thoughts get strong enough, then sometimes we have people that find themselves actually going through with it, and then they're no longer here when they could have had help, right?
Yes.
And so another thing that I talk about, because even more recently, as far as like a couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with my baby sister, who had listened to one of the episodes on the podcast and heard me talk about my bout with suicide ideations and all of that. And so she called me and we were talking, and she was like, "How did you go through that?" And I didn't know. You know what I mean? And I said, "Well, when you're going through it, it ain't like you walk around with a sign that says, 'Hey, I'm depressed and thinking about suicide.' Like, it's something
Right.
that you don't talk about." Um, but what brought to my mind even more so after that is that because we're not talking about it, when it happens, we're all caught off guard,
Right.
right? When somebody takes their life, it's like, "Oh, I didn't even know they were going through that," or whatever, because we're not having a conversation, And I started saying, "Listen, when you call me, or when I call you, or when you call anybody, that's your loved ones, and you call them to check in on them, ask them how they're doing, and the first thing they're gonna say is, 'I'm doing okay,'
Right.
right? But then ask them how you really doing." Like, give them that, let them know. No, I don't want the blanket. I want to know really what's going on. I want to know what's going on under the blanket. I want to know
Right.
what you're really dealing with, because once you do that and they say, "Okay, now," that kind of opens up the door for them to really be able to talk to you. And you may find out that they're in a dark place. You may find out that they're having some thoughts that they, don't know how to deal with, and then you'll be able to reach them in that place. And so I want to make it normal for us to have the conversations. You know what I mean? Normal for it to bring it up, like, hey, especially now, because it's more prevalent now, especially with our kids and people now, even coming out of the pandemic, is more common than any of us want it to be, really.
Right.
It's like when you hear about it, it's like, "Oh man, that's sad," but it's now becoming taboo because you're hearing it so often. And I don't want that to be the norm. I want us to shake that up. I want us to know that there are ways to get help. And so, if anybody have ever listened to the podcast, I'm a person that loves acronyms. And so when I think about how I came out of, my suicidal ideations and that whole period that I went through, I made a acronym for the word fun. So I would say, let's have fun with it. And so the fun stands for focus, unite, and normalize, right? So the focus, you have to focus on or off yourself, depending on your situation that you're in. So with me, when I was going through, I had to take the focus off of myself,
Yes.
because I was looking at where I was, and I'm like, "Man, I can't do this, and this is not working out, and that's not working out, and I'm just at this place where it seems like I can't do nothing right, and everything is going wrong. I don't want to be here no more." And so I had to take the focus off of myself. And what I did was put the focus on my daughter, because my daughter is a daddy's girl. And so it's
Wow.
always been me and her.
Yes.
So it's like, what happened to her if I'm not here?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's lost both of her grandmothers at this point. And there'll be times that with me and her, because she was only like 6 or 7 at this time, and there'll be times when me and her will be playing, I'll be playing with my daughter, and she'll just start crying. And I say, "What's wrong?" And she say, "I miss my grandma." You know what I mean? And so me really thinking about that, like, she's already traumatized by the two losses of both of her grandmothers at such a
Wow.
young age. And then with me being her father and her being my shadow and her being a daddy's girl, what would happen to her if I'm no longer here? And
Exactly.
so that focus made me say, "You know what, if nothing in my life is going right and everything is falling apart, I'm still going to stay here because I got to be here for her."
Gotta
And
be here
so
for her.
sometimes we have to put that focus on whatever that we need to put it on instead of ourselves. And so I say focus or refocus, because I say focus because that's what I had to do. I had to take the focus off of myself. But having this conversation with a couple of therapists, and they were like, "Well, you really should, from how they teach it is you need to focus on yourself, like what's going on the inside or whatever. And I said, well, I'm not going to, I'm not going to battle or dispute that. It just depends on the person. So for me, I had to take the focus off myself. You know what I mean? So another person may have to put the focus on themselves or look
Right.
inside. So focus or refocus, whichever one you got to do, figure that out and put your focus there. Right?
Yes.
So that's the F. That's the F for focus. The U stands for unite. And so what I found going through what I was going through, I reached out to someone and they were very instrumental in helping me get out of that place. Making sure they were checking on me, coming to get me out the house when I'm in the house with the windows drawn and you know what I'm saying, come knock on the door and say, no, we're going outside today. You know what I mean? And so with the U for unite, you have to find someone, a community, or call the suicide hotline, whoever, but reach out to somebody, connect with
Yes.
somebody, unite with somebody, so you're not trying to go through it by yourself, and you're not feeling like you're the only one. Because again, that's a lot of times what we do, because we feel like we're the only one and we hold it in. That's how we end up in these dark places that we
Yes.
can't get out of because we don't reach out for help. And so with the U, as far as unite, like I said, reach out to family members, reach out to organizations, call the suicide hotline, find a support group, whatever you need to do to reach out for help, you need to do that. And then the last one with the N will be normalized. So going through bereavement after my mother-in-law passed away, after my mom passed away, I started doing bereavement counseling for myself. And I liked it so much that after my term was over, I stayed and became a volunteer to help others on that same journey.
Nice.
But one of the things that we talk about in bereavement is that new normal, because your normal is not normal no more, because you're used to your mom being here, your mom's not here no more, so it's different.
Yes.
But what does that really look like? And so I take that same mindset into thinking about whatever the situations that you're in, that you're having these thoughts about because you can't change it, or things look so down, or and this and that. Like, okay, let's refocus. Let's look at it not how it is and say, yeah, things are different. Things have changed. There's some things I can do something about. There's some things I can't do, anything about. But let's look at it. Okay, this is my life now. So
Right.
let's make this my normal. And so how can I operate within this new normal? Maybe I lost a job. Okay, how can I operate in this new job to make my life still get better? Maybe I lost a loved one or a love interest. Maybe I got divorced. Okay, what can I do now that I'm here in this space to make my life still operate and still live and still be alive? And so we just have to really focus and address those things to make our lives better. And so, yeah, I talk about suicide openly because I want us to have the conversation. I want people to know that you're not in it by yourself. I want people to know you're not the first one. And unfortunately, you may not be the last one that's in this position. But one thing's for sure, you're not the only one. And if we can step out of the feeling of feeling like we're the only one and reach out for help and reach out to our loved ones in those communities, we can gain the strength that we need to stay here another day and not take our own lives.
Absolutely. Because I know I'm the baby out of 5, and I lived with my mom, and I stayed with her, and I retired in 2017. And the next month, she was diagnosed with heart disease. And so even though she had a home attendant, I was still there. I still went to the doctor appointments, and my brothers and sisters helped too. But because, I lived there, I was more of the person that did everything and cared for her and stuff like that. So our bond became so strong, and we're a tight family. And so we always was there for each other. When I couldn't be there, my sister stepped up and my brothers stepped up, my 2 brothers. And so, my mom was in her 80s, and because I lost my dad when I was 12, he had heart disease as well. He died at 56. So my mother became both of our parents, and I'm glad that she was able to live 30-something years after my father, because sometimes they go right after each other, and so I thank God that she lived, so long after my father. But at that time, you always praying and hoping for the best. And what happened was my mother had got sick in 2019, and the end of 2019, that's when everybody was like, what is this thing that's out? Which was the COVID. Nobody knew nothing. And she had to go to rehab for a little bit, just a little bit, 2 weeks, get her strength up, start walking. And, she just wasn't looking right. And then they stopped us from going up there, because I was going up there every single day, stayed there for at least 9 or 10 hours a day. And when Como stopped it, um, that was a hard hit for all of us. And then to come to find out, now we're ready. We got to get her out. We got to get her out because she's not looking, we doing the Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And we like, mommy not looking right. And because my brother, thank God, he was a heart transplant patient at New York Presbyterian, he was able to talk to the doctors like, please, y'all got to help me with this. And we were able to get my mother out. But by then, we didn't know she had COVID. And so when she got to the hospital and they did all these tests, it was like, your mother got COVID. And it's not looking good because it went through her whole body. And the heart is already weak. That's it. Right. We had to come up there and they told us, y'all got to say goodbye. And I'm like, goodbye? What you mean goodbye? You go to this. I know what he said, but I don't know what he said. You know what I mean? I said, what you mean I got to say goodbye to my mother? What's wrong with you? You saved my mother like she's the president of the United States, because that's who she is to us. You understand? That's our queen. You save her. No, it was too far gone. And at that time in my life, I said, yo, I don't want to be here, because, and I say to myself, your parents can't live forever, but to you, they're your superhero. Oh, she could beat this, she got this. No. And I went through a time in my life when my mother passed, I died. A part of me died because we were like peanut butter and jelly. We were close. That's all I knew. I felt like the umbilical cord was never cut. And I went through it, Ernest. And thank God my sister stayed with me for those 3 weeks. We took care of everything. If she wasn't there, I don't know. And it's so funny that when that thought came to my head, I knew this was God helping me because the phone rang. And it was Calvary Hospital saying, do you need therapy? And I knew that was God. I said, that was God. And I said, I need everything that you can give me. I'm losing my mind and I need help. And, when you growing up, your parents from the South, pray on it. You got to pray on it. You got to do things right. Change what you need to change. Ain't nobody was talking about no therapy. Therapy? You need no therapy. Come on over here and sit with me. And what's going on? What's going on? Meanwhile, your whole business is in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas. Because now you feel like, oh, I don't want to talk to nobody because everybody going to tell everything. You trying to find somebody that you could, they just talking to you. And I got therapy. And it's still a battle, Ernest. My mother died April 15, 2020, and I'm still struggling every day. But I believe my faith is strong with the Lord. And, we was raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I believe in that. And I study, I read my Bible, and I pray because I know the devil is busy. And he don't want us happy. He want us to harm ourselves. He want that. And I said, no. My mother would be very disappointed in me. And I got to keep going. I got to keep fighting. And I'm doing the best I can because I know that was God that day. That was like, no. And I still do my therapy. I encourage my friends to do therapy. I encourage everybody because I think living in this world, everybody needs therapy. I don't care who you are. Everybody needs somebody to vent to and talk to and help because people are carrying a lot on their plate. And I just thought that I was going to be good. Oh, I'm strong. I'm a retired correctional officer. Please, we tough. We don't. No. At the end of the day, you're a human being. And I felt it.
Right.
I felt it when my mother, I said, I don't see my mother coming up them steps. I don't see my mother fussing with me. Get this off the table. Why you put this? And I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you are mentoring to people and encouraging people cause it's about self-love and we have to love ourselves. We have to, because we'll let anything or anything just take us down. And I tell you, I needed it. And I talk to my therapist and I do what I have to do and I pray and I do my meditation. So kudos to you for helping those that are in need. Because we need more people like you. I'm telling you, we really, really do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And one of the things I want to touch on real quick is to a lot of us, unfortunately, we've been raised in a way or taught in a way where it's like you have to choose between your faith and therapy. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
well, if I grew up in the church and they said, well, just pray about it, then I should need therapy because it depends on my faith. You know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, you need both.
You
You need
need
your faith
both.
community and you need your therapy community, right? I know there's a scripture, I can't think of where it is now, but it says first the natural, then the spiritual. So your natural man need therapy. Your
Yes,
spiritual man need faith. But
yes,
your natural man needs some therapy. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
So you need both of them, and it's not a choice. You don't have to feel some type of way like your faith is weak because you go to therapy, or because you go to therapy you're not faithful. No, you are faithful,
yes.
and the Bible even says faith without works. So you got faith, but you got to do the work too,
That's
and the
right.
work
Faith without
that's the
works is
work of
dead.
therapy.
That's right. Faith without works is dead. Yes, indeed. Yes. And you got to
so
be
so
around
so
positive people too, Ernest. You can't be
yes,
around negative people. You can't be around people that's negative. That's the key too. You got
yep,
to be around people that's motivating you as well and pushing you. And that's why I could thank my family for that. Because what if I
yep,
was around people, well, you know what people say.
right,
Thank
right.
God she was, she
Yeah,
made it to 87. You got those people that's talking silly. You be all right, cold hearted.
yeah, yeah, right.
Instead
And
of,
you know what?
go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why I really love, this social media thing
Mm-hmm.
that we have, with this internet that we have, with the podcast that we have, because just on my own personal journey in these last couple years, in the midst of COVID and coming out of COVID, to be able to connect with so many people that's on some positive stuff, and so
Yes.
many people that are growing. Just in when I started my podcast and connected with other podcasters. You know what I mean? It's like I've met hundreds of podcasters now, and we're able to have conversations as well as other things, getting into self development and that community, and then even as a speaker, getting into the speakers community with all these people that I didn't even know existed if it wasn't for the internet, if it wasn't
Yes.
for podcasting and things like that. So we have a resource now that we have to use it the right way. A lot of people is using it wrong with all the stuff that you see on social media and all this foolishness,
Yes.
but we have to use it the right way, because if we use it the right way, we can connect with people. Like, I'm in Chicago, you're
Yes.
in New York.
Yes.
We probably would never have met each other in person, but
Exactly.
through someone that we both know, we were able to connect, and now we're having this conversation, and we've never seen each other in person. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But we are part of a generation now that has all the knowledge and power at our fingertips. We just got to reach out for it.
Gotta reach
And
out.
so there are so many ways to find the help that you need. There's so many ways to be around positive people all the time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you can do it. You know, you got the power in your hand, and it starts off with the podcast. You already listening to the podcast? Go
Yes.
follow some more people. You know,
Yes.
follow me, follow Preezy. You know what I'm saying? And look at the people that we follow. You know what I mean? And see like, oh, it's way more good and positive in this world than it is negative. But just the negative voice is a little bit louder because there's so many foolish people that like to share foolishness. But it's definitely a lot of positive out here.
Oh, definitely is. Yes. And that's the key. And we all make mistakes. We're not perfect, but when you keep making the mistakes, then now they're choices. So we just got to stay focused, and keep our health right, start eating right, start
Right.
eating better, because a better body makes a better you. You want to be strong and do your checkups. I encourage all my friends, make sure you do your yearly checkups. Make sure, don't sit around here and you in pain and you're not feeling good, and get to that doctor, and get that physical, because we gotta live. We want to be with our families and as long as possible and just enjoy the time with them on this earth, because look what's going on. The earthquake just happened, and all these different terrible things that's happening. So it's we gotta live our lives and keep God first, because without him we're nothing. We're nothing. And you just keep praying, because he hears you. Trust me. I know he heard me. I know for a fact he heard me. So a
Yep.
lot of other people probably heard me too. So I'm
Right.
just happy. I'm just happy. And I was disappointed at myself at one point, and then I said, you know what, I'm gonna change that, and I'm gonna try to elevate myself and just stay focused, because that was the key, to stay focused. And so that's, I encourage people to do that. Just stay focused. Don't worry. Whatever you didn't do yesterday, try to do it tomorrow. And
Yes,
just keep
sir.
going. Just keep going. Don't procrastinate on definitely don't procrastinate on yourself. Cause see, what we do is we'll do everything for everybody else, but we won't take care of us. We won't
Right.
take care of
Yeah.
us, and that's the
Yeah.
problem.
And
It's self-love.
yeah, and we got to put ourselves first. I want to mention something real quick before we get out of here.
Yes.
Um, that you just mentioned about you were disappointed in yourself for a minute. So one of the things that I'm another thing. See, I got so many stuff going on. Another thing that I'm involved with, right, is an organization that's called the Forgiveness Mission, and you can find them at the
Mm.
forgivenessmission.com, right? And so what we do is we have a forgiveness workshop um, every quarter of the year. In fact, at the time we're recording this, we just had our first one for 2023 last weekend, you know. And so what we do, we talk about forgiveness, what it is, what it's not, and go into that. But the part where I come in is I teach on self forgiveness, right? And so again, going back, I'm a person that loves acronyms, so I do stuff around acronyms. So I take the acronym SELF, and I say when you're having trouble forgiving yourself or you're hard on yourself for something that you've done, you have to take the acronym SELF and look at it from that perspective. So the
Right.
acronym for SELF stands for season of life, emotional state, limited information, and overall forgiveness, right? So when we talk about the S, which is season of life, what season of life that were you in when you made the decision? And so as a 21-year-old, I may have made some decisions or did some things that now that I'm 46, I'm not too proud of. But
Right.
if I think about what season of life I was in, I was young and dumb. I
Right.
was 21. You know
Right.
what I mean? So at 46, I can look at it and say, you know what? I was just young at that time. And by me accepting the fact that I was just young in that season, I can forgive myself for it, or I can give myself grace for it, right?
Okay.
When we look at the E for our emotional state, what emotional state were you in at that time?
Right.
So again, going back to myself, when my mom passed away, I was all over the place emotionally because my mother-in-law had already passed away,
Right.
and then again going through my own season of depression and things like that. So emotionally, I wasn't in a place where I can make sound decisions. So if I made a decision of something that's like, man, I shouldn't have did that. Now I can say I shouldn't have did it. But at the time, I was emotionally distraught.
Right.
So when I look at it from that perspective, I can give myself grace, right? Then we talk about the L, which is limited information. There's decisions that you make because you just don't have all the information. So you go off the information that you have, like, oh, you should, do this or that. And then after you do it, it's like, oh, well, if you had did this, it would have went even better, or it would have went a different way, but you didn't know. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So you have to look at, okay, I didn't have all the information. And so when you think about the season of life that you're in, when you think about the emotional state that you're in, and you're thinking about the limited information that you have, then we get to the F, which is being able to forgive yourself by acknowledging at that moment when you made those decisions or whatever, you was doing the best that you could in retrospect with all three of those. With the season of life you were in, with the information that you had, with the emotional state that you were in, when you made that decision that now you look at and say was a bad decision, you can give yourself grace by saying, at the moment that I made that decision, I was doing the best that I could, and
Right.
grant yourself forgiveness for that. So yeah, that's just something I teach. Again, that's what the forgiveness mission. You guys can find us at forgivenessmission.com. We do, like I said, free virtual workshops every quarter of the year. We just had our first one last weekend, so we got some more coming up. If you look us up on Eventbrite or at forgivenessmission.com, you'll be able to get the information for the next one. Yeah, so just out here trying to make a difference, and like I said, we gotta keep living, and we want to
Gotta
live
keep
productive
living.
lives.
Now, where can my guests find you, Ernest? Your website,
Um,
email, your different
yeah.
programs.
Well, one thing, you can find me on all social media pretty much. Um, with the podcast, which is um, the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Definitely look me up on YouTube. I definitely want to get my YouTube numbers up. Um, but you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of that at uh, Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. My website, dealhealfulfill.org, is the website that you can find me at, and find out a little more about me in every aspect. I got some ebooks, which I want to talk about a little bit. The ebooks, I have 3 ebooks that's out right now. One is called Forgiving Me, the 4 steps to self-forgiveness, where we talk about what I just mentioned. We got one called the 4 core, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should receive from her father. And then we got one that's called From Males to Men, which is for young men. That's more of a male mentoring book. But all 3 of those are available right now at ebooksbyejames.com, which is another place where you can find me. But I made that real simple, ebooksbyejames.com. But if you want to find me and connect with me in the most easiest way, is just type in Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and it'll come up.
Awesome. Awesome. I just want to thank you so much for being on my show. It's been awesome. And you keep up the good work. Wow,
I
this is
appreciate
great.
you. I appreciate you for having me.
Yes, and I want to let my fans out there know, and everybody that's listening, to live, laugh, love. Love you first, because you can't love anyone or anything unless you love yourself first. Stay healthy, stay focused, keep God first in your life. Love and hug your family, and of course your pets, a little bit tighter. Love you, mommy and daddy, forever. Thank you so much, Ernest. It's been an honor. And you got to come back now. You got to come back.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah. Well, I'm part of the family now, so.
Absolutely. Yes. Chicago. I know Chicago cold, so stay warm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
host, Preezy. Hey, yo, Preezy, tell them how to keep in touch, baby.
Go to Instagram, Listen Up, Listen In 5687, and on Facebook, Listen Up, Listen In. You can also email me at listenuplistenin5687@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, by following me on social media, you'll be able to see all the platforms my podcast is on. Wherever you consume my podcast, hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast.
Listen up, listen in. Listen up, listen in. Yeah.